Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of BD Alchemist. Very good news. Recently, our channel has gotten 1,000 subscribers. It's more than what I hoped for. And thank you for everybody who has subscribed and is watching. And I hope I am helpful in any any small way. That is the whole purpose of my channel, is to be as helpful as possible. Especially knowing in our industry, that's always not the case. There's a lot of, I guess, bickering that I see in the forums, and I do my best to stay out of them because of it. But my intention is to help anyone who's seeking help. So please keep supporting me. If you have any specific thing that you want to know, I am open. If I can, I'll make a video on that. But today's episode is about flex fuel tuning for the Evo X. Now, I have done a flex fuel tuning video before, but I don't think it was that detailed. I think that people, I have gotten side comments on, a lot of questions about specifically about tables and what to do and what not to do. So I decided to make a video today as detailed as possible on how to do a flex fuel tuning. If you are not new to tuning, this you'll pick it up very quickly. If you tuned other platforms and you're familiar with ECU Flash, after this you should be able to tune at least the flex fuel part of the tuning for Evo X's. So I'm going to start with the fact that you have to buy, on a stock ECU for Evo X, you have to buy Tephra V3. Tephra is David Shirley is a person who basically is in the community, Evo communities. He has been developing a lot of these ROMs with special features and definitions and things like that for us, and I'm grateful for him and people like him for doing all this. So the Tephra V3, there's V1, V2, and V3. The V3 version is the one for flex fuel. If you don't need flex fuel, but you want a lot of good definitions, a lot of tables that exists in the V3, go with the V2. It's $50. It's less than the V3. V3 is $100. You don't think you need any of that, you could just use V1. But I personally use V3 for everything, because you know what, I'm going to pay the money. I think the V3 is defined better and there's more support for it. The V1 came out very, very early. I don't think the definitions were right, and sometimes depending on where you download it from, it can be glitchy. So I like the V3 with the added features, and it's VIN protected, so I really like it. So that's how you will first start. You would have to purchase the V3 ROM version for your VIN number and your make and model. In order for you to do that, you basically go online and purchase it from him. And we have two options to do it. One is from Tephra's website. You basically just Google his name, Tephra V3, and directly into his website, this pretty self-explanatory. It also tells you how to tune your flex fuel. Not in great detail, but it's enough for any tuner to basically get some pointers and start tuning. But important thing is you check which ROM that you have currently. It goes by year. And you have to supply him with the VIN number and the ROM ID, and then basically pay the $100 or $50, whichever you chose. Basically after that, he just emails you, and in the email is their new ROM, the V3 ROM with a definition and everything. You just put the definition into your definition folder and you open the ROM up. You do have to have all the previous existing definitions. If you download and install ECU Flash in most recent times, you should have everything anyway. So on his website, there are more information. It actually tells you how to tune, even install the flex fuel content sensor, which is very, very important. Without it, your ECU cannot read the content and cannot adjust. It tells you what the tables, each tables are for the flex fuel that you have to adjust and what it stands for. on kind of how to adjust them, and even has ECU flash. Evo scan content that you need to use to log your ethanol content sensor. So it's pretty comprehensive. I would take my time, read every last sentence, and just make sure you understand it before you start doing it. But I will try to help as much as I can through this video. So you got your ROM from Tephra, and you have installed your ethanol content sensor, and you basically load the ROM up. And the ROM basically it's your VIN number, and that's the name of the file that you'll download from the email. So don't get it confused with anything else. You open that up. It's a bin file on a zip. You open it up, and immediately you notice that there's a lot more tables than there are in your normal stock ROM. So you basically, the first thing you see is not even flex fuel based. It's not. I think the order this set in is pretty good because it starts with knock. Load required for knock is basically what load the knock flash warning will activate. I usually set it to 140. How much knock is required for slow flash? It comes in from Tephra as 3, and the other one is 5, which is fast flash. It lets you know that, hey, the knock content is higher. And something to really pay attention to is the TPS cut. So if you look at high knock, which in here I guess is called super knock, and max TPS during the high knock, whatever you set this to is going to be considered a super knock. So this from Tephra comes in as 9. So leave it at 9. Every time your car sees 9 counts of knock, it will lower the throttle to whatever you set this at. This comes from Tephra as 100%. I personally set it to 50. So anytime it sees 9 counts or higher knock, it'll drop the throttle to 50% automatically. So initially, you're going to have to tune 93. Now, a lot of people do a reverse. They do high content ethanol first. I don't. I like to do 93 because if you have some, high cams and some custom work, large injectors, a fuel system that needs to be tuned in, I do 93 because I already know, based on experience, what each injector should feel like and what it should do and whatnot. So it's easier for me to tune 93 first. The MAF scaling is easier. A lot of things are easier because I'm more used to 93. Most cars do 93. So you do your 93 as you normally would. I would come in here initially from top. Something I would do different is map switching. Make sure it's off. Alternative maps is also off, and doesn't really matter what the count is. Alternate map count 9, you could set it to 1 for now, but ultimately you're going to be using only one alternate map to tune the E85 version. So I will leave all the flex fuel inputs and all this stuff as is for now, and then just tune my main maps that you normally would. These high octane fuel timing and all that stuff, boost on 93 octane or whatever lowest ethanol content that you can find. So after this tuning, well, for my example, I'm going to use Augustine's car. We've tuned it before. He just came in for a flex fuel tuning, and this is the video on that. So after basically we tuned the 93, as you can see, we made like 430 something. And this was straight 93, low boost like 25, 27 pounds or something like that. We have to drain the fuel. Now, an Evo X doesn't have a drain plug. You literally gotta, you know, feng shui some things and get it out. We usually use the drain on the return line and turn a pump on or hold cancel or whatever on the steering wheel for the cruise control. That usually primes the pump and you can get it out that way. Once you've drained it, I like to do X98 to begin, because that's the highest form of 93, I'm sorry, ethanol you can buy. And we start with that. We usually start with the high content. Now, typically, if I had my way, I would put a tank of E85, whatever you can buy, and then tune on the second tank, not the first, because you're still getting 93 mixture out. The second tank will usually be higher. So say you got your 98, I'm sorry, your high level, high content ethanol in your fuel tank, and you're ready to tune. You're still not turning any of the flex fuel stuff on. I don't do that. I just you're using alternate map 1. So the regular high octane fuel and all this timing stuff is for your 93. And then alternate map 1 is going to be for your highest ethanol content you can get. So basically you tune this as normal. You would go in here, go to map switching and turn on alternate maps. And once you've done that, the alternate map count was 1, we set it to. And then you tune your ethanol, your E85 or whatever you have, the highest level you can get your hands on, as normal. As you can see, this is what we did. All right, so we made 2 pulls, and we made like what, 466. But as you can see, after 2 pulls, it's already gone down to 76%. So usually I like to do it on the second tank, but this is the reason why I'm using X98 to do the E85 version, E85 part of the, I'm sorry, E85 ethanol part of the tube. All right. All right, so on that last run, we made 486 and 380. The torque is getting up there. I don't know how I feel about that, but we're gonna see what we can do. Also, the mix has gone to 72%, and that's kind of anything below 75. I don't want to really push it. So he's adding more fuel. Let's see what we can do about the percentages. If not, then we're gonna keep it at this, and then we're just going to mix all the fuels in to get all the different steps, make sure the computer is adjusting for the different mixtures of fuel. All right, so that went pretty good, I think. What do you make, like 487 or something like that on 32 pounds of boost. The customer is very happy. But now that's on, I think we ended with like 75%, because as I was saying, this was kind of mixed. And as we did more polls, I guess the mixture got even more less, I guess, ethanol content, and that's why I always do X98. If it was my car, I would personally want to do a second tank, but this works. Either way, so we made 480 whatever. That's the highest level we're going to see, but now we need to turn on the flex fuel. So if you come in here, you would think that, yeah, you know what, it looks like I'll just turn off. No, there's more things that needs to be done. So we go back to Tephra's website, and you can see here that there are some coatings or I guess some patches that you have to put in order for true flex fuel tuning, and especially for injectors. So the stock setting for injectors, it's not that granulated. So if you go to 1624 on, you know, ID 2000s or whatever, let me give you an example. So say your injector scaling is 1624. That's usually what people tune at on 2.0s. And then you were at 98% ethanol, or say 85% ethanol. You mix some things in, now it's 70% ethanol. That's a, you know, almost 10%, more than 10% difference. You cannot lower this 10% because it's not granulated. So if you tried, say, 1600, let's see what happens. It won't let me. Let's do 1575. Yep, see, the lowest one, I'm sorry, the step after 1624 is 1539. There's nothing in between. So to cure that, Tephra have added some coating where it's very granulated, but you have to patch it into your ROM. So let's put this back to that, and we'll see what happens. So to get the right patch for your ROM, you go to ROM info. You look at your internal ID 5958304. You go to Tephra's website, and you basically get 5958. Just look for that. 5958. Where is that? 5958. Let me see. There you go. So 5958004. Copy and paste this. So you copy this. And you go to your ROM wherever you kept your directory. Usually it's in, what is it? C drive, program files, open ECU, ECU flash, ROM metadata, Mitsubishi, Evo, and then 59. Okay, so this is your 595803. The 3 basically means it's V3. The 02 basically means it's version 2, and the 01 is the version 1, and the 00 is stock. So it's the same one. You just open this up, but you won't be able to edit it in this directory. You basically pull it somewhere else, like I have it on desktop. You open this up, and I open it with WordPad. Whenever it lets me. I'm sorry, my computer's slow. Okay, WordPad. You go all the way to the end, right before ROM. You just add that in, and it'll basically hold. You save and put it back into the directory. Once you have done that, you'll see there's some changes into your ROM. So let me load one that I've already done for my friend here. What is this one? Yeah, I just turned it recently. Okay, let's see. All right. So now you actually have the flex fuel injector scalings right here. So I will show you what that means. Before that, go into flex fuel input, turn to however you set this up. So mine was at the pressure sensor. You have an option of also doing it for different places. Rear O2 sensor, whichever socket that is, through the CAN bus, and the fuel pressure. So I did a fuel pressure. Leave the others same, averaging period, so it doesn't take a direct reading. It averages over, I guess, 4 milliseconds. And that's what it uses for your calculations. Now, if it did it like every time, every second, like whatever your content read, it would never be able to calculate properly. So it takes an average. Flex fuel cell sensor range. So it will not go below 2%. 2% is basically the lowest it'll read. And the flex fuel voltage, it will not go below 0.02. If it does, it'll throw a check engine light. So that is very good safety feature, which I love. If your sensor is not working, you can figure it that way. Once you turned your flex fuel sensor on, you need to test it. See if it's actually reading. The way to do that is, once again, we go back to Tephra's website and go all the way to the bottom. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed a step. Because most of us use the fuel pressure signal is basically being interrupted or hijacked, there's another code that you have to, another password you have to put so it doesn't show a check engine light. So basically, same thing again, 5958, take this patch, do the same thing, attach it all the way to the bottom, and you will see that on your new ROM, it actually shows you this. So it doesn't throws check engine light because you interrupted the evap sensor. You just turn the patch on and you should be good. Now, let's go back to testing, which is EvoScan. Tephra website, go all the way to the bottom, and it shows you these EvoScan calculations that you have to put into EvoScan to basically see what the sensor is doing, if you can read it. Now, if you look at this, it can be a little daunting, but fear not, it's pretty simple. So it says if you want to use the EvoScan log, simply create a new data item. So go to EvoScan. Sorry, let me just put this in. Okay. You go create a new data item, just right click, edit. Okay. And then you add new item. As you can see, new item. Go back. The request ID is 238050. That's the beginning 6 numbers for all 4 of them. And then you add these numbers starting from 8, I'm sorry, not from 8, from 5075. So the first digits are always 238050 for the request ID, and the last digits are 75, 81, 79, and 83. So basically what that means is, let me show you already created ones. So the first 6 digits are always same. The last 2 digits is what that changes. So raw ethanol voltage, this is what reads that. And the eval equation is also put on here. It's X multiply 5 divided by 255 for voltage and percentage is this. X times 100 divided by 255. So you take this information, you know the first 6 digits is going to be 238050, and the rest just changes. 75, 81. So for example, the raw value is 75, copy of it is 81. The voltage average that the ECU is using ends with 79, and the actual percentage is 83. So you just plug all that in, create 4 of these with these equations, and it looks like something like this on your content. Now, important thing to, on your EvoScan, important thing to note, if you do not turn on the flex fuel mode and tell the ECU how you're feeding the flex fuel signal, it's not going to read on EvoScan. So you have to create this, turn the flex fuel on. I just do what I just showed you, put it and flash it into the car, then turn the ignition on. You can still start it because it's going to run on the flex fuel. I'm sorry, the ethanol content 98, whatever you put, and you can see what the EvoScan is reading. Now, you don't have to turn it on. Just turn the ignition on. You can just read the voltages, and if it reads the voltage, and the other ones are just a piggyback on the voltages. So that's how you check if it's actually working. Once you turn the car on, it'll start fluctuating the reading and whatnot. Now, before you turn the car on, you already tuned 93, you already tuned the highest level ethanol content that you're going to do, which is in the car right now. The car should have the ethanol content that you made the highest horsepower in or whatnot. Now, time to turn on the flex fuel stuff, and I kind of go into it. Now, which are basically these tables. As you remember from Tephra's website, which I don't know why I just closed. Let me get back into that. Okay, pretty descriptive about each of these tables. Just read through it and then watch this video if you still need some pointers. Now, first thing is flex fuel sensor voltage ethanol. What each voltage will read on your gauge. Now, if you have a gauge, it's awesome. I prefer to get one with the gauge because I have, I'm not going to keep looking at these little writings. But you can also kind of check what you're reading versus what the content is, the gauge is reading. So this controls that. I typically leave this alone. If I use, say, Innovative, I will check this, make sure it's reading the same as the gauge. That's basically what it's for. Injector scaling. Now, to understand, injector scaling is it's still reading percentage, as you can see on the right hand side. It's not the same thing as this. So after you're content with what each voltage means of percentages, close this injector scaling. For me, I leave the same. 100%. 100% in this case is 100% ethanol. So anytime you see percentages, the higher the percentage, more is going to lean towards the high ethanol or whatever you tuned in alternate map 1. Very important to know. So according to this table, it'll do 100% of alternate map if it sees 100% ethanol. It'll also do 100% an alternate map when it comes to injectors if it sees 87% ethanol. It'll do 85% of injectors if it sees 74% ethanol. So that's how to read it. 0% is not 0% of this map. 0% means it's using 100% of the 93 scaling. Right? So I know it could be a little confusing, but you'll get used to it. Leave this on 0 because 0 basically means 0 ethanol. I actually turn this to 0 because I'm usually running 9 to 10% ethanol anyway. So 12.5% ethanol, I also turned that to 10%. And then the rest I leave the same. I'll interpolate it, but yeah, it's pretty much you got to play with it. I found that this works for me. Sometimes I do not change all this. I leave it as is, depending on the car, depending on injectors and whatnot. Now we have the injector scaling. I hope I'm not confusing you guys even more. Let's go to map interpolation. Same concept as the injectors. 100% means it'll use 100% of your alternate map 1. 0 means it'll use 100% of your high octane fuel map. For me, on this specific car, this number worked. So as you can see, we were started at 98%. We ran 100% alternate map scaling for the map, the fuel map. Up to 74, we ran. Up to 74, we ran 100% of the alternate map fuel map. It worked for us. The rest you can interpolate, but this is the part that you're gonna have to work on. But for now, just explaining what each one of these does. So same thing here. 100% means 100% alternate map. 0 means 100% of high octane map. And boost, same thing. And the cranking enrichment. Now, you're still at the same percentages as before, whichever you turn alternate map. There's been no changes. After you turn this on, you flash it into the car. I would suggest you turn the car on. You'll see check engine light flashing very fast. That means it's just doing calculations. Don't do anything while it does that. Basically, give it time to calculate. Once it's calculated, make sure the AFR, everything is correct. Oh, I'm sorry. Very important part. Once you finish with this and you're happy where everything is, where your base, because we don't know how it's going to act, just a guess, turn all these on. Injector scaling 1 through 5. Turn them on, meaning you'll find them at 80, turn them to 20. 20 basically switches your high octane fuel and all these high octane injectors and your alternate map injectors into using a replacement one, which we remember it wasn't that granulated, the scaling. Well, it makes it granulated. So you take your fuel injector scaling replacement, your high octane fueling scaling, high octane injector scaling, you place it here in this new table. Don't be alarmed. What it'll do is it'll change your high octane fuel injector scaling, the original one, as you can see. You see it changed. As soon as you change your whatever your scaling is and you put into this table, it'll change the other table, but don't worry about it. This is your new table from now on. And again, you're not touching this because you already done the 2 maps. But I just want to show you how granulated this is. You see, you can really, go up and down pretty small increments, and that's why he created this. So you put your high octane, whatever you scaled your map to, your 93 octane fuel injector scaling into fuel injector scaling replacement, and whatever you used fuel injector scaling alternate map and put it in this alternate map replacement. So those are the 2 things, and then you turn on all these scalings 1 through 5. After this, your computer, your ECU should be able to calculate it. Flash all this in, turn on the car, check engine light will start flashing. It's just calculating. And once it stops flashing, do a run, make sure everything is all right. We've done a few, as you can see. Do a run. After that, you changed fuel. Again, you would have to drain some of the fuel out, put some 93, change it into a lower one. And this is what we've got.
Get those sausages in there.
It's like fat fingers. All right, so we're draining some fuel to get the lower E content down. Let's see if the computer computer listens to us, lowering the boost, lowering the timing, lowering everything according to the ethanol content. That's the whole point of Flex. So, just like releasing the pressure. So unfortunately, the Evo X doesn't have a drain on the bottom at the back. So we literally gotta, jump the pump and then take it out from the return line of the rail. Typically, we would just use the steering wheel, press cancel on the cruise button, and it'll prime the pump. But he doesn't have. Let me show you what he got. He doesn't have a stock steering wheel, so you gotta do that bullshit. So this Quicksilver project, that's not it. Right now we're fitting some signal wires for cylinder 3 and 4 into this from our ECU from the Infinity because we want to go sequential. That'll give each one of these coils a little bit more energy and makes everything a lot easier. There's also is better for knock detection and knock deterrent. After this, we're gonna basically tune it on 93 just to break the motor in and go balls out. So we're almost done. Just a few final touches here and there, and that's about it. We added the cutout for the exhaust. I think the car looks good. Always loved Evos because of the meanness of the car. Also, the headlights need to be basically cleaned out. Wow, that's pretty bad. Yep. So we just finished tuning. I just took it out for a spin, make sure everything is all right. I got it down to like 38% ethanol with fuel changes. Did a few runs. It's making what is it, 487 at 76% to 99% ethanol. It's making 441 at like 65%. I'm sorry, it's making 472 at like 65 to 68%, and it's making 441 at what, like high 30s. So overall, it's a good car, stock car. It has a GTX 3071 or 76, I forget. I'm running around 32 pounds of boost at high end, and at a low end I'm running 25 to 27 pounds. Overall good. The car is completely stock, no cams, no nothing, just exhaust and a few things. But overall I think it came out pretty okay. Customer's happy, that's all that matters. I'm gonna try to see what I can get done in my car ASAP, because it's been sitting for a few weeks now. Right now we broke it in a little bit, but you know, once you start the car and drive around and those cylinder walls cut, you got to break it in quick. Set, you know, seat those rings and make sure the rings take the shape of the cylinders. Otherwise, they get glazed and stuff like that. So I'm kind of anxious to get the car going. So all you're doing at this point, after you verified that the new mixture, say, you know, you were at, you know, 85%, 90%, and you dropped it to 10%, so it's like 70 something, that your air fuel, everything is correct. Now, if it's not correct, say it's leaner and the timing is off as well, you would just come in here and only control the interpolation. Yes, you can kind of control the timing and alternate map directly or high octane, but that's going to mess up your tune when when you go back to that octane level or ethanol level. So I would test this out, which percentage works per, I guess, percentages. I do usually 100, I'm sorry, 98, 95. Then I drop it to like 85. Then I do like 70 something. Then I'll do 50 something. Then, 30, 40 something. Same thing with the injector scaling. The more higher the percentage, the smaller injector setting it is. So if you are running, say, 93 octane and you put 100% in here, it's going to run really, really rich because it's going to use the alternate map, which is the ethanol content sensor, ethanol content, high ethanol content table. So just have to play with it. Just keep reducing or increasing your ethanol content and see if the map interpolates correctly. See if your interpolation and your settings for these are correct. Boost is a big one. Just straightforward. Higher the percentage, obviously higher the boost, because I'm assuming you're running higher boost in high ethanol content. That's basically it, and this is basically what we have done at the end of all that, and I'll show you three differences in ethanol content with no other editing. I actually did not have to edit anything in this flex fuel content for Augustine's car. It was great from the way it came from Tephra, but I just verified that it is correct. So that's basically it. I hope I was able to help. Please keep your comments coming. Subscribe if you like my content, and also leave a note on what you would like to see. I am starting to, well, I'm going to start making videos on other platforms as well. I haven't really done that so far because there's so much to cover in one thing, and I basically do this once or twice a day, I'm sorry, a week. So then on top of that, the videos and everything, and also be safe. You all know why I'm saying all this. So, and stay tuned. Thank you.